Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're diving into Kenneth Burke, specifically some excerpts from A Rhetoric of Motives. And we've got some analysis to help us out from the always enthusiastic Dr. Bobby.
Yeah, Dr. Bobby's great.
And today's focus is on this concept of disassociation. I'm really interested to see how it all connects to motivation and really even the nature of truth.
That's a good way to put it. It really is all tied together.
So let's get right into it, shall we? I mean, Burke really seems to push us to think differently about, like motivation. It's not just what motivates people, but more like, how do we even understand those motives?
Yeah, that's what's so fascinating about Burke. He's not just giving us answers. He's giving us a whole new way to ask the questions, right?
Exactly. It's like he's giving us these new lenses to see the world through. And I think that's where disassociation comes in. Now, you had some really interesting thoughts about how this connects to your own work, so I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, well, in my field, we often rely on these established models and frameworks.
Why? To make sense of things.
Exactly. But sometimes those models can kind of box us in, and that's where Burke's idea of disassociation is so helpful. It's like he's saying, hey, let's break free from those mental ruts, question those ingrained patterns of thought, because that's how we uncover the hidden motives and assumptions that are really shaping our perceptions and actions.
So it's about shaking things up a bit, breaking free from those comfortable but maybe limiting ways of thinking.
Exactly. And I think that's so important in any field, really, whether you're a researcher, an artist, or just someone trying to understand the world around you.
It's about challenging those assumptions, those things we take for granted, and really getting to the heart of why we think and act the way we do.
Absolutely. And like Dr. Bobby said, that's where those aha moments come from, Those moments when you suddenly see things in a whole new light. That's what keeps us going, right?
Oh, absolutely. The thrill of discovery. Okay, so we've talked about challenging how we think, but Burke also kind of takes aim at our understanding of truth, doesn't he?
He does. And this is where things get even more interesting. He breaks down truth into two key components: fact and abstraction.
Okay, I'm listening. Break that down for me.
So for Burke, truth isn't just about objective facts. It's also shaped by the abstract concepts and interpretations we bring to those facts. And it's the interaction between those two that create our understanding of truth.
So it's not just about what is, but also about how we understand what is.
Exactly. And he compares this to the idea of metaphor, actually, but with a twist.
Oh, this sounds right up Burke's alley. Tell me more.
Well, Dr. Bobby makes a great comparison to I.A. Richards' theory of metaphor. Remember that one?
Vaguely.
Well, both of them are dealing with these connections between seemingly disparate ideas.
Oh.
But Burke takes it a step further. He emphasizes the active nature of abstraction, meaning it's not just a passive process of labeling things, but an active process of shaping meaning and understanding.
So it's not just about saying this is a house, but more about understanding what it means to be a house.
Precisely. He even uses the example of houseness as a verb rather than just a noun. It represents this universal concept of to be a house, the function, the purpose, the essence of what makes a house,
It's like that Platonic ideal of a house, right? The perfect form that exists somewhere out there.
Yeah, you're totally getting it. Plato believed that there are these perfect forms of things, like houseness, that exist in this realm of forms, and every house we build in the real world is just a copy of that perfect form.
So each one is like a little step removed from that ideal.
Exactly. And Burke takes that idea and kind of applies it to action and motivation. Like, our understanding of truth is also shaped by those abstract ideal forms.
Huh. So everything is just a copy of a copy of a copy.
Yeah.
That makes me think of music. Like how a song changes when you copy it from vinyl to cassette to a digital file. Each copy is a little further away from that original recording.
That's a fantastic analogy. It really highlights how these abstract concepts play out in the real world, how each interpretation can become a step removed from that original ideal form.
So we're starting to see how disassociation helps us peel back the layers of meaning and motivation. But then Burke throws in this whole other concept, impurity in action.
Right. Things are about to get really interesting.
I can tell you're excited about this. So tell me, what is this impurity all about? What does it even mean to say that actions are impure?
Okay, so Burke argues that actions are never purely about their intended purpose. There are always these other elements at play, often irrelevant or even contradictory to the desired outcome. And he connects this to the concept of means and ends, right? suggesting that the purest means are those that are most closely aligned with the desired end.
So the more extraneous stuff tangled up in your actions, the more impure they become.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And he gives this example, well, Dr. Bobby does in his analysis of Lex Luthor, from Superman.
Oh yeah, the classic villain.
Exactly. So Lex doesn't just want to destroy Superman, right? He wants to create this new world order with himself in charge. And he sees Superman as an obstacle to that goal.
Right, so he's got this larger purpose.
That's it. And so he comes up with this elaborate plan to trigger a massive earthquake that will reshape the West Coast and create all this valuable new real estate that he'll control.
So even a villain like Lex Luthor is trying to achieve a specific end, and he's choosing actions that he thinks will lead to that end, not just like randomly blowing things up for fun.
Exactly. He has a plan, a purpose. So would you say his actions are less impure, even though his ultimate goal is, you know, pretty villainous?
Hmm, it's a good question. It really gets to the heart of those moral dilemmas Burke is exploring, doesn't it?
It does. It makes you wonder. Even villains are striving for a kind of purity of action. They want their means to align with their ends, even if those ends are kind of messed up, right?
That is a really interesting point.
It is. It's like this inherent drive for consistency, even in evil.
So even Lex Luthor, even with his crazy schemes and wanting to, kind of destroy the world, he's still striving for that alignment between means and ends.
Fascinating, isn't it?
It really is. But that kind of brings us to this whole moral dilemma, right?
Yeah, Burke doesn't shy away from the tough questions, does he?
Not at all. So where does that leave us? If even the bad guys are aiming for this pure action, what are we supposed to do?
Well, Burke suggests that a truly ethical person, they never abandon a purpose that they believe is good.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
But, and this is important, they always try to choose the purest means possible, even if it's hard.
So it's not just about the what, it's about the how.
Exactly. The path you take matters, right? It's about making sure your actions are actually lining up with your values.
Which, let's be honest, can be tricky.
For sure. It takes real careful consideration, thinking through the consequences of each choice.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like that time I tried to bake a cake for my friend's birthday, and I accidentally used salt instead of sugar.
Oh, no.
The cake looked perfect, but yeah, did not taste good.
We've all been there, though, haven't we? Making those choices where there's no easy answer.
That's life, right? So how do we do it? How do we avoid falling into that trap of justifying any means just because we think the ends are good?
That's where disassociation becomes such a powerful tool.
Okay, so back to disassociation.
By breaking down our assumptions, by questioning our own biases, we can actually see things more clearly.
So it's like taking a step back, looking at the bigger picture, and asking ourselves those tough questions, right? Like, are the means I'm choosing really lining up with what I'm trying to achieve?
Exactly. Or are there other options I haven't even considered? And am I really ready for the consequences, even the ones I didn't plan for?
It's about being honest with ourselves.
Totally. Recognizing that things are complicated, and being okay with making tough choices. It's about those moments of ethical struggle. They shape us.
Yeah, I like that. This is making me think about Dr. Bobby's take on why villains often fail. He said it's not because they're stupid, but because they pick impure means. They miss the flaws in their own plans.
That's a really interesting idea. It kind of flips the script, doesn't it? It's not just about being evil, it's about making bad choices.
Right. He uses Lex Luthor as an example again. He says Luthor's plans are always so complex, so reliant on these crazy schemes, that they just backfire.
Ah, I see. It's like they're so focused on winning that they forget to build a solid foundation.
Exactly. They get blinded by their ambition and miss those cracks that eventually bring them down. Which makes me wonder, do we all have a little Lex Luthor in us?
Oh, that's a good question.
The temptation to justify our actions, even when we know they might not be the best.
We all want to see our plans succeed, right?
Yeah.
But are we willing to compromise our values to get there? That's a question we all have to wrestle with.
Absolutely. It highlights the importance of constantly checking ourselves, questioning our motives, even when we're convinced we're doing the right thing.
So how do we do that? How do we actually become more aware of those hidden biases that can lead us astray? We've got this tool of disassociation, but how do we use it in real life? How do we make it practical?
That is the big question, isn't it? And that's something I think we can delve into a little deeper. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here with disassociation, right? It's a powerful tool for understanding motivation and truth, and even why villains trip up sometimes.
Right, it's all connected.
But the real challenge is putting it into practice, yeah? Like, it's great to talk about disassociation in theory, But how do we actually use it in our daily lives?
Exactly. How do we make those abstract concepts concrete?
Yeah, how do we take all this heady Burke stuff and turn it into action?
Well, I think there are a few key takeaways from Burke and from Dr. Bobby's analysis that can help us with that.
All right, I'm all ears. Give me that disassociation action plan.
All right, well, first and foremost, I think it's about cultivating a sense of curiosity.
Curiosity. Okay, I like where this is going.
Yeah, it's about being willing to question things, not just other people's motives, but our own assumptions too.
So instead of just accepting things at face value, we dig a little deeper.
Exactly. Look for those underlying connections, the contradictions.
Hmm. So it's like being a detective in our own minds.
You got it. Always looking for clues, questioning the evidence, trying to piece together the bigger picture.
That's a great way to put it. So we're not just going with the flow, we're actively seeking out different perspectives.
Exactly. And that means being open to different viewpoints,
Yeah.
challenging our own biases and realizing that there's rarely one right answer.
Oh, yeah. Truth is messy.
It is. It's complex and multifaceted, and that means getting comfortable with a little bit of discomfort.
Ooh, discomfort. Nobody likes that.
Well, it's not always fun, but it's how we grow, right? It's those moments when we have to confront our own limitations that we really learn and evolve.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got curiosity, open-mindedness, and a tolerance for discomfort. What else can we add to our disassociation toolbox?
Well, I think the next step is figuring out how to put disassociation into action. It's not just a mental exercise, right?
So it's got to be more than just thinking about it. It's about actually doing something.
Right. It's about making choices that reflect those deeper values and principles we've uncovered.
Okay, so walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Exactly. It's about bridging that gap between theory and practice.
Aligning our actions with our intentions.
Yeah, even when it's hard, even when there's no perfect solution.
And that brings us back to Dr. Bobby's point about villains like Lex Luthor. How their downfall isn't necessarily because they're stupid.
Yeah, he had a really interesting take on that.
Right. It's because they choose those impure means. They're so focused on the outcome that they overlook the flaws in their own plans.
And those flaws, those cracks in the foundation, eventually lead to their downfall.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? Makes you think about how true success isn't just about achieving a goal.
No, it's also about how you get there.
It's about the integrity of the path we choose,
Exactly. And choosing means that align with our values, even when it's tough.
even when it means maybe sacrificing short-term gains for long-term integrity.
You said it.
So maybe the big takeaway here, the thing we can all learn from this disassociation deep dive, is that we have the potential to be both heroes and villains, depending on the choices we make.
That's a great way to put it. And disassociation gives us a framework to make those choices more consciously, more ethically.
And hopefully more effectively, too.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that power lies in our ability to choose.
And the more we understand those choices, the more we understand ourselves and the world around us.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, that's a pretty inspiring note to end on. Gives us all something to think about as we head back out into the world, yeah.
Definitely. Something to ponder.
Think about your motives. Think about the means you're choosing to achieve your goals. Are they in alignment? Are there places where you could be striving for that purer action? It's a question worth asking. And as always, thanks for joining us on this deep dive. See you next time.